Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to talk about Labour's latest policy announcements because it's very much at the heart of my sense of socialism. Now, first of all, if you find yourself enjoying the video, then please consider clicking the like button and subscribing to the channel. So Labour have announced what they call an insourcing revolution. It essentially encourages councils to use publicly owned services instead of wasting money on private companies. It doesn't prevent private companies being involved if they think they're good enough, but it would place a test of standards on councils to prove that they were getting the best service for a good use of public money. And this very much harks back to the very first video I ever did on this channel in the misty days of 2018 when I didn't even know exactly what I was doing here. The way I look at a public service is as follows. So if you have a publicly owned company providing that service, then they have certain costs that need to be met. They have staffing costs, premises costs, maintenance, supplies, possibly research and development if there's a lot of tech in that public service. They also need to reinvest to roll out newer technology to keep the service modern and efficient. Now, all of these costs also apply to a private company offering the same service. But with a private company, you have at least one additional cost. And that definite additional cost is profit. Private companies are in it to make money, and there are only three ways they can make money, and the nature of private companies is to maximise profits. They will try all three. The first is you can charge more for that service. So that means all of us paying more taxes just to line the pockets of private financiers. Well, the Tories are all about tax cuts, so they really shouldn't be supporting that sort of behaviour. And Labour are all about spreading the wealth, so they certainly shouldn't either. So that shouldn't even be a possibility. Two, you could cut corners and offer a poorer or less safe service. Well, this involves the general public paying the same for a lower quality service. How does that make sense on any level? Or three, you could pay the workers dramatically less or make them work more hours for the same pay. This again increases the gap between rich and poor, especially the idle rich and the hard-working poor, and so is a morally bankrupt ploy. Besides, it could also mean getting less able employees or working them so hard that mistakes are made, and so can still result in a poorer quality service. But supporters of private companies in public services say it's more efficient, to which I can only ask, what are you smoking? In what way can it possibly be more efficient? A publicly owned service literally does exactly the same as a private company, only it doesn't have to worry about profit and it can do it on a larger scale. It still has to worry about efficiency, and you can employ the same quality people to provide that efficiency drive. In addition, let's take the NHS as an example, a very proud example in this country. Or at least the bits of it that haven't been privatised yet. So the NHS as a collective is massive. It is the single largest employer in Europe. That vast organisation can work very efficiently by having a central research and development department whose results benefit the entire service. They can also centralise other departments as well. But when you split it into lots of smaller bits, which of course you have to do if you're going to fully privatise it, and they have already done this with the NHS Trust, for example, then each little bit has to do its own things on its own. It can't centralise because it's individual companies. That's much less efficient. Take my situation, for example. So I had surgery last December and now I need checkups at regular intervals. My GP and the hospital where I was a patient are in two different towns, only about 25 miles apart, but they're both in different NHS trusts. Now, at various times, they both need to take my blood and run tests on it. The same tests. But it's not a case of having bloods taken at one place and then they share the results with the other different trusts. So no effective communication between them at all. That means I need to make two separate journeys and get stabbed two different times to have the same test done. If the NHS were still a large national organisation, think about the time that could be saved and how much less pressure there would be put on that system. The other thing about publicly owned services is someone from the outside might think that we seem to keep electing Conservative governments and those Conservative governments keep banging on about tax cuts, so the British must not like paying taxes. But surveys consistently show that Britons have no objection to paying taxes if they are used to fund public services. A recent poll showed that 62% in this country want to pay more taxes if it ensures that the NHS remains strong. This is why the lie about funding the NHS with the so-called Brexit bonanza was such a powerful tool, because people in this country value the NHS. They just don't keep a very close eye on it. And that is the thing with privatisation of the NHS. Too many people in this country think that the NHS is a fully public service, but that it's in danger of privatisation. It is being privatised. Quite a lot of it already has been, and it's obvious enough when you walk into a hospital. You know, if you see no other signs at all, the cleaning company are a dead giveaway. They even have their own branding. They're not even trying to look like they're part of the hospital. The hospital could easily have its own cleaning staff, but it doesn't. It pays a company who hire the same staff and buy the same equipment that the hospital would, but charge them extra fees to make a profit. How does that make sense? Why does that hospital do it? It's done not because it's an efficient use of money and resources, but because the system is set up to do that. And this is not about bashing private enterprise. I'm a socialist, and yes, I know there are socialists that seem to hate wealth. I think it's an envy thing. I don't. I have no problem with people generating wealth, and if they happen to have some great inspiration and worked at it to make a successful business, brilliant. All I demand is that wealthy people pay their taxes and that the money they earn is through free enterprise. Donating £50,000 to the Conservative Party and then having a Tory minister give you a £5 million government contract is not free enterprise. It's bribery and corruption. So Labour are promising to change the system so that you have to justify the quality of service and cost. They're not excluding private companies from bidding, which is good. I have no problem. I am so secure in my belief in public services that I don't believe you could get many, if any, private services making a successful bid. I mean, I'd not be in favour of having private companies anywhere near our public services if I was king of the world, say. Sure, buy private manufacturing, buy from private manufacturing companies, but not the service, not offering the service privately. If they think they can offer a great service, then run the service privately and make your own money. That happens anyway. We do sometimes have private companies delivering what could otherwise be obtained as a public service. If it really is a great service, it'll work. And it'll work without handouts from the government. So the system would change to favour publicly owned companies. And this is simply because it's not possible to offer the same quality of service at the same cost whenever you have to focus on making a profit, something that a public company doesn't need to do. QED. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click the Patreon link to find out more. And until next time, I'll see you later.